Did you ever wonder why that policy manual or employee handbook is as thick as a copy of War and Peace? Well, it happened by accident. Literally, by accident. I used to drag race. No, not RuPaul, but auto racing. Quarter-mile, enormous horsepower, 0 to 60 in less than a second drag racing. Someday I'll talk more about the fun my daughter and I had doing that. One day we're waiting with our car in the technical inspection line. Before every race, every car and driver were poured over by safety officials. This day it was taking a long time. The guy in front of us was whining. The grizzled veteran inspector, who had to be in his 70s, turned to him annoyed. He waved his rule book in the guy's face and said, "Every line of this is written in someone's blood." The entire line fell silent. Almost all rules in rule books and even many laws happen by accident. Someone does something silly or has some terrible accident, and soon comes a new rule. In drag racing, people were always trying to make the cars lighter, so racers would eliminate things they felt were unnecessary, things that had saved countless lives. It's true in other sports. The baseball infield fly rule protects against a sly deception. Footballs must be inflated to a constant pressure to prevent advantage, and so on. In business, it's the same thing. A hammer is dropped and everyone wears hard hats. Someone takes advantage of the time-off policy and strict rules arise to prevent a repeat. It's really just a big game of whack-a-mole. Can't have anyone doing that, so they make a policy against it. The result is rule creep, and policy manuals so big that no one reads them or understands where they came from. Bigger, older companies are the worst. They have larger rule books and more complex policies for two reasons. One, they're older and there is just more time for the creep. And two, they have HR and legal teams who default to making rules. Neither of these is a good excuse. There have always been people pushing against this, people who tried to resist it. Patty McCord, the first head of HR for Netflix, worked with founder Reed Hastings to build a culture deck, a brief slide deck outlining the tenets of the company and provide the framework for working there. I think the original version was about 20 slides long. It was widely hailed as the anti-policy manual. She got plenty of press and praise for it. I recently checked the latest version of that slide deck. It's 127 slides long and has almost all the same kind of cruft you see in any policy manual. But you can be part of the resistance. For most organizations, fewer rules are better. Sure, having a clear, concise set of rules is important, but so is trust. Trust that your employees are good people who by default want to do the right thing. If you start off distrusting people, the natural tendency is to push against the limits. If there are fewer limits, you'll find most people are reasonable. If you trust people, they will reward you by being worthy of that trust. Examples of this are everywhere. Companies like Nordstrom and others have empowered their employees to make things right for the customer. There are few hard and fast return rules, just what is right. Line employees can decide what it means to fix a customer situation. They feel empowered, and they virtually always do the right thing. Best of all, the customers are happier. Remember that there are really only two types of necessary rules. Ones that prevent irrecoverable disasters like the drag racing rules, and ones that address ethical or legal issues that expose the employee or the company to risk. Otherwise, be consistently on the lookout for rule creep. Rules and policies grow like weeds, creeping in when you're not looking. Because preventing errors sounds so good. When trying to decide if you need a rule, ask yourself, is this just a weird exception or is there a real ongoing risk here? And what if we just learned from this and didn't codify it? What's the risk of that approach? Shift the default from, we need a new rule here to, do we really need a new rule here? Also, try to clean house. Every so often, take a look at that policy manual. Try to get rid of rules wherever you can. I worked with a nonprofit and we cut the people manual in half. Most of the ones we removed were things no one remembered how or where they came from. We trimmed it down to something you could read in under 10 minutes. Here are a couple of specific examples I've seen work. No vacation policy and no tracking. Just take time off when you need it. This is the real version of unlimited PTO. Managers have complete discretion to work with their employees to find a balance that works. It takes realizing that someone who's abusing PTO is also probably not getting the work done. And instead of micromanaging the time off, you address that issue. Another is no dress code. People are reasonable. No one comes to work naked. Set expectations by example and common sense, and leave room for cultural differences. Again, trust is the issue. If you have people you trust, they will do the right thing. If you don't trust them, address that. Look in the mirror to be sure you're being trustworthy, or find employees you can trust. The creep of rules and policies is not inevitable. It is something management can control. Please don't build up or simply accept an encyclopedia of rules created by accident.